Oh geez, oh my, there I go again. You don't score enough, I mean no offense.
Yo, what's up YouTube? It's your boy Moose and welcome back to the channel. And as you've all probably heard by now, Erik Karlsson has been traded from the San Jose Sharks to the Pittsburgh Penguins in a massive 3-team deal that also includes the Montreal Canadiens. This is a huge trade for the Pittsburgh Penguins as they are clearly all in now with Erik Karlsson as they try to give Crosby, Malkin, and the rest of this core one last shot at taking a Stanley Cup run. So taking a look at the trade in its entirety, the Pittsburgh Penguins are acquiring superstar defenseman Erik Karlsson from the San Jose Sharks, with San Jose retaining $1.5 million of the contract, as well as forwards Rem Pitlick and Dylan Hameliuk, as well as the San Jose Sharks' 3rd round pick in 2026. The San Jose Sharks are acquiring the Penguins' 1st rounder in 2024, with that pick being top 10 protected, as well as veteran forwards Michael Granlund and Mike Hoffman, and veteran defenseman Jan Rutta. And the Montreal Canadiens pick up a 2nd rounder in 2025 from the Pittsburgh Penguins, as well as defenseman Jeff Petrie, who will have 25% of his contract retained by Pittsburgh, goaltender Casey DeSmith, as well as prospect Nathan Laguerre. So in total, this is a pretty big trade as there are 9 players involved, including 3 draft picks, some salary retention, as well as a draft pick protection. So in today's video, we are going to head into NHL 23 and we are going to recreate the Erik Karlsson trade in the game through the player movement feature. And then we are going to head into franchise mode and I'll give my thoughts on the trade while we check out the new look lineups for all 3 teams involved in the deal, while we also sim through a season or 2 to see how things play out. So alright, in order to recreate this trade in NHL 23, we are going to start by sending Erik Karlsson from the San Jose Sharks to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So there we go, Erik Karlsson is now on the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then the Penguins also picked up prospect Dylan Hameliuk from San Jose, so we're going to go ahead and send him over to Pittsburgh as well. And then they also picked up forward Rem Pitlick from the Montreal Canadiens, so we're going to go ahead and send him over to Pittsburgh as well. For San Jose, they pick up Michael Granlund and Jan Rutta from Pittsburgh, so we're going to go ahead and move both of them over to the Sharks. And then they also got Mike Hoffman from Montreal, so we're also going to go ahead and make that move as Sharks legend Mike Hoffman makes his long-awaited return to San Jose. And then finally, Montreal gets Jeff Petrie and Casey DeSmith from Pittsburgh, so we're going to go ahead and send both those guys to Montreal. And then they also got prospect Nathan Laguerre from Pittsburgh, so we'll go ahead and make that move as well. Alright, so now we have sent all the players involved in the deal to their new teams. Of course, there were also a couple of draft picks involved in this trade, but I'll deal with those once we're in franchise mode. And for this video, of course, we're just going to do a quick simulation of 1, maybe 2 years, as I just want to see how Erik Karlsson and the Pittsburgh Penguins end up doing. So I'm going to be turning off owner mode. I'm also going to be turning off player morale for this video, and I'm also going to turn off fog of war. And then I went back and forth a bunch of times on whether or not to have injuries on or off in today's video. On one hand, injuries are super annoying to deal with, and I do want to see this new look Pittsburgh team perform well. But on the other hand, having injuries on is also more realistic for this Pittsburgh squad, as one of the definite question marks for them is, can they stay healthy? They have an aging core, and Erik Karlsson comes with his own set of injury risks. So I think because of that, I want to play it realistic today, and I'm gonna leave injuries on for this video. Alright, so here we are now in franchise mode, and like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and make a couple of trades in order to complete the Erik Karlsson deal. So in the first move, I'm going to send Pittsburgh's 1st rounder in 2024 to San Jose in exchange for the 2026 3rd rounder that they gave Pittsburgh in the Karlsson deal. Of course, EA Sports is absolute hot garbage and doesn't allow me to put a top 10 protection on the 1st rounder, but it is what it is. And then in my other move, I'm also giving Montreal that 2nd rounder in 2025 from Pittsburgh, and I had to include a random 7th rounder in 2028 in order to make it happen. But alright, with those draft picks now traded, that now completes the Erik Karlsson trade. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the new look lineups for each team involved in the deal. And we'll of course start with the Pittsburgh Penguins, as they are the big winners of this deal after acquiring Karlsson. So the offense is looking pretty good here in Pittsburgh. You of course have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin 1-2 down the middle. Jake Gensel and Rickard Rakell as the top 2 wingers on that first line is pretty solid. Riley Smith comes over from Vegas to Pittsburgh during the offseason, as he'll play on the 2nd line with Malkin and Brian Rust. Drew O'Connor is playing on the third line after he just signed a 2-year extension with Pittsburgh to avoid arbitration. And then the newly acquired forward Rem Pitlick, he's going to be centering the fourth line with offseason acquisitions Matt Nieto and Nola Chari playing on the wings. Taking a look at their defense, and this is where things are looking really good now, at least on paper. On the top pair, I've put Ryan Graves and Chris Letang together, and then I put the two Swedish defensemen together on the second pairing with Marcus Pettersson and Erik Karlsson playing together. Obviously, you could switch Karlsson and Letang, and that could work as well, or you could even switch up Ryan Graves and Marcus Pettersson, but either way, the top four of this defense is looking good. I do wonder how having both Erik Karlsson and Chris Letang on the same team will hold up defensively, especially as both players continue to get older, but for right now, this is a nasty top four. On the power play, this is where the Penguins are absolutely stacked now, as you've got Erik Karlsson and Evgeny Malkin on the points, with Sidney Crosby, Jake Gensel, and Rickard Rakell up front. And then on the second power play unit, at least when everyone is healthy, you've got Chris Letang out there on the point with guys like Riley Smith and Brian Rust up front. And then in net, with Casey DeSmith no longer around, Tristan Jarry is now the starting goaltender, while Alex Nedeljkovic will be the backup. So that is the new look Pittsburgh lineup after the Karlsson trade. Last year was certainly a return to form for Erik Karlsson, as he ended up putting career highs across the board last season with 25 goals and 76 assists for 101 points. And adding him to a Pittsburgh core that includes the likes of Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang should give the Penguins enough firepower to make some noise this year in the East, as long as everyone can stay healthy for them. Taking a look at the San Jose Sharks' new lineup, they've actually got a decent amount of new faces on the team. Anthony Duclair is now on the roster after an offseason trade with Florida, as he finds himself on that top line with Tomas Hertl. Mike Hoffman, who of course was just acquired from Montreal in the Erik Karlsson deal, is playing on the second line with Logan Couture and top Sharks prospect William Eklund. And then Michael Granlund, who was also just acquired in the Erik Karlsson deal, he's actually going to be playing on the fourth line here for San Jose, although in real life, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in a middle six role. On defense, this is where things really start to fall apart for the San Jose Sharks, as on paper, this looks like it could be one of the worst defense groups in the entire league. Mario Ferraro and newly acquired Jan Ruta make up the top pair, as Ruta takes Karlsson's spot in the lineup in what is a huge downgrade for San Jose. Matt Benning and Nikolai Knizhov make up your second pair, while Mark-Edward Vlasic and Radim Šimić make up the third pair. The Sharks also brought in defenseman Kyle Burroughs from Vancouver this offseason, so you could see him get into the lineup here on defense. And they also have young defenseman Henry Thrun, who could also see some playing time. But regardless, this is a rough looking defense group here in San Jose. And Mackenzie Blackwood projects as the starter in San Jose after they acquired him in an offseason trade with New Jersey, while Kaapo Kähkönen backs him up. So that's the new look Sharks lineup. And for the San Jose Sharks, it's very clear that this trade is all about getting out from underneath that Erik Karlsson contract and moving forward as a franchise. The Sharks only retained 13% of Erik Karlsson's contract, which was obviously a goal for them. Personally, I would have liked this move a lot more for San Jose if they could have gotten another pick or maybe some prospects from Pittsburgh, but that's clearly the price that you pay for only retaining 13% of Karlsson's contract. It might feel like an L right now, but as time goes on, I do believe that the Sharks will benefit from this move. It's tough to call them winners in this deal, as they do lose the best player in the trade and they don't pick up any prospects, but when you get rid of a contract like Erik Karlsson's at just 13% retained and you pick up a first rounder in the process, it's hard to call that a loss for a team that's rebuilding. And really quickly, taking a look at Montreal's lineup after the trade, their lineup wasn't as drastically changed like Pittsburgh or San Jose's was after the deal, but we'll still take a look regardless. That first line with Montreal with Slafkovsky, Suzuki, and Caulfield has a ton of potential, and you've also got Alex Newhook now centering the third line after Montreal acquired him in the offseason from Colorado, as he'll be playing with Christian Dvorak and Brendan Gallagher. And on defense, this is where the big change is, as Jeff Petrie will now be making his return to Montreal, as he will be playing on the top pair with Mike Matheson. And who knows, maybe Petrie can regain some of his old form by returning to Montreal, where he definitely had some solid years. If not, worst case for Montreal, they can just flip Jeff Petrie at the trade deadline. And with 25% of his contract already retained, it should be much easier for Montreal to try to move him. And in net, the CPU has put Samuel Montembeault as the starter for Montreal, with Jake Allen as his backup. Of course, Casey DeSmith is now on the team after the Erik Karlsson deal, and he could absolutely factor into the mix to get some starts. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in real life between these three goalies, but at least in the game in today's video, it's going to be Samuel Montembeault and Jake Allen getting the nods for Montreal. So for the Montreal Canadiens, they get to capitalize on the fact that the San Jose Sharks and the Pittsburgh Penguins needed a third team involved to help facilitate a Karlsson trade, and they were more than happy to oblige. Considering that Montreal only gave up Mike Hoffman, who's an aging player with just 1 year left on his deal, and Rem Pitlick, who has so far just been a bottom six forward in his career, Montreal got a pretty decent return in this trade as they pick up a package that includes a second rounder. That's some pretty slick work by general manager Kent Hughes, and it makes a ton of sense as to why he got his team involved. I like this trade for Montreal, and I think they did a good job on capitalizing on the situation between San Jose and Pittsburgh for their own benefit. Alright, well now that we've gone through the new look lineups for all three teams involved in the Erik Karlsson trade, all that's left now is to go ahead and sim through the regular season here in franchise mode and see how things play out now that Erik Karlsson is on the Penguins. Will they go on a Stanley Cup run, or will Pittsburgh fall short of expectations? Let's go ahead and sim the regular season and find out. And after simming through the entire regular season, the Pittsburgh Penguins were able to make the playoffs as they finished with a record of 45-31-6 for 96 points, which was just good enough for 7th place in the Eastern Conference and a playoff spot. And the Montreal Canadiens also just squeezed into the playoffs as they took the 8th and final spot here in the Eastern Conference, finishing with a record of 44-32-6 for 94 points. Unsurprisingly, however, here in the Western Conference, the San Jose Sharks finished second last with a record of 29-42-11 for 69 points. So after making the Erik Karlsson trade here in NHL 23, the Pittsburgh Penguins and Montreal Canadiens both end up making the playoffs here in the East, while the San Jose Sharks really struggle as they finish at the bottom of the league standings. Taking a look at the player stats now, and this is unbelievable, Erik Karlsson had an absolutely monstrous season as he put up a new career high with 113 points with 20 goals and 93 assists.
Damn!
This would be Kyle Dubas's wet dream right here, an absolute best case scenario for the Penguins if they were able to get any type of performance like this from Erik Karlsson in real life. Sidney Crosby ended up being second on the team in scoring with 91 points in 81 games. And then there was a bit of a drop off from second to third as Malkin was third on the team in scoring with 58 points in 72 games played. Looking at San Jose, who had a really tough season, Mike Hoffman was the best of the new guys as he put up 51 points in 82 games, while Mikael Granlund had a really tough year in San Jose as he only put up 30 points in 81 games played. And Jan Rutta, who is the other player that San Jose acquired, he only ended up appearing in 50 games, scoring 15 points. On Montreal, they ended up getting a pretty decent season from Jeff Petrie as he played in all 82 games, scoring 10 times with 24 assists for 34 points, as Montreal just got into the final playoff spot here in the East. And somewhat unbelievably, guys, Erik Karlsson was actually the leading scorer in the entire league with his 113 points, as he finished 9 points ahead of both Alexander Ovechkin and Connor McDavid, as they both ended up finishing with 104 points each. So just a miraculous season from Erik Karlsson in his first year in Pittsburgh. It literally could not have gone any better. However, as nice as the health and the overall points are, for Pittsburgh, this trade to acquire Erik Karlsson is about more than just regular season success. It's all about trying to win another Stanley Cup with this core of Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. And they still have a long way to go here as they will be going up against the Toronto Maple Leafs here in round number 1. So now it's time to go ahead and sim through the playoffs and see if this Pittsburgh Penguins team can truly go all the way with Erik Karlsson. And after simming through the entire playoffs, the Pittsburgh Penguins ended up making it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they ended up losing to the Columbus Blue Jackets of all teams in 6 games. The Blue Jackets actually ended up winning the Stanley Cup as they beat the Colorado Avalanche in 6 games as well in the finals. So a pretty surprising result there as Mike Babcock and the Columbus Blue Jackets shocked the hockey world and take home the Stanley Cup. For the Pittsburgh Penguins, they were able to take down the Maple Leafs in a tough 7-game series in round number 1, and then moved on to face Jeff Petrie and the Montreal Canadiens in round number 2, where Pittsburgh was able to win another exciting 7-game series. But in the Eastern Conference Finals, that's where the Pittsburgh Penguins met their demise as the Columbus Blue Jackets took them down in 6 games on their way to winning the Stanley Cup. Erik Karlsson continued to lead the way for Pittsburgh as he put up an outstanding 26 points in 20 games played with 3 goals and 23 assists. So Erik Karlsson definitely did his part here for Pittsburgh during this simulation. Evgeny Malkin was second on the team in scoring during the playoffs as he put up 21 points, while Jake Guentzel was third with 18. Erik Karlsson ended up being third in playoff scoring in the entire league as he only trailed Patrick Laine and Johnny Gaudreau, who had 29 and 32 points each respectively, as they of course ended up winning the cup in Columbus. So again, just an absolutely incredible performance from Erik Karlsson here in today's simulation. So the Blue Jackets are of course your Stanley Cup winners, while the Toronto Maple Leafs take home the President's Trophy. And Erik Karlsson was an absolute monster in his first year in Pittsburgh as he ends up winning the Art Ross Trophy as the league's top scorer, the Hart Memorial Trophy as the league's MVP during the regular season, the Norris Trophy as the league's best defenseman, the Lady Byng Trophy as the player with the best mix of sportsmanship and skill, as well as the Ted Lindsay Award as the NHL's most outstanding player. So all in all, that is 5 total trophies for Erik Karlsson here as he ends up leading the league in scoring with 113 points and helps the Pittsburgh Penguins make it to the conference finals here in our NHL 23 simulation. I think it's fair to say that outside of not winning the cup, this simulation today could not have gone any better for Erik Karlsson and the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think Kyle Dubas and the Penguins would literally cream their pants if Erik Karlsson was able to have a season like this for them in real life. And while I do think that expecting anything like this or what he was able to do in San Jose last year is probably unrealistic, I do think on this Pittsburgh team, Erik Karlsson should be close to a point per game player for them. And if he can be that as well as stay relatively healthy, then this trade is definitely a win for the Pittsburgh Penguins as it gives them a better chance at competing here in the Eastern Conference. And for San Jose, the return of the trade is definitely a little bit underwhelming, but picking up that first rounder and being able to remove themselves from the Erik Karlsson contract, that's still a win for them as well. Montreal, they were able to play it smart and were able to take advantage of the situation by getting rid of Mike Hoffman and picking up a second rounder in the process. I think this is a deal that could work out for everybody. There's definitely some risks involved, especially on Pittsburgh's side of things, as they now have an aging core that definitely has some durability concerns, but at least for right now, they are a much better team with Erik Karlsson on the roster. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out in real life. If the Pittsburgh Penguins are able to win a Stanley Cup with Erik Karlsson on the team, I think we'll look back on this trade as an absolute slam dunk for Kyle Dubas. But if they aren't able to realize playoff success and Erik Karlsson and his contract don't age gracefully, we might look back on this trade a little bit differently than how we look at it now, as this trade could lead to a lot of issues for Pittsburgh down the road. Well, that is going to do it for today's video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it and found it interesting. If you did, be sure to leave a like on the video and comment down below. What are your thoughts on the Erik Karlsson trade? Who do you have as the winner of this deal? And do you think anyone walks away from this trade as a loser? Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any future content. I've got a lot of video ideas for down the road, so you don't want to miss out. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and until next time, Moose out.